Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our Monday, November 1st, 2021 meeting of the Whitley County Board of Commissioners. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we like to recognize the service of our employees. We've got some certificates of appreciation here. And the first one I have is for Nadine Lamley. Is Nadine here? Nadine's been with Whitley County for 36 years. We want to thank her for her dedication to Whitley County. Next one we have is Randy Dellinger. Randy, saw him around today. 33 years of contribution to Whitley County. Amy Motter. Amy, 28 years. You aren't even that old, are you? Thank you. Now the next one we have is Jody Hollandbaugh. 27 years working for the Sheriff's Department. She's done a great job. We really appreciate her. She's going through a death in the family right now, so we want to think about her with sympathies for her. Joe Wolf, 27 years. Joe here. Joe's worked for the Highway Department 27 years. Sean Martin. Sean, 25 years for Sean. He's our jailer, the head of the confinement officers, does a great job. We appreciate what he does over there. Judge Matt Rentschler, 25 years. We want to thank. Oh yeah, it'd be tough for him to be over. Laura Enyart, 24 years. We want to thank Laura. Michael Puckett, another Highway Department. Michael's not here either. 24 years. A lot of dedicated people. And Todd Cook, 24 years with the Sheriff's Department. Hard to believe. Oh, we want to thank all of these people, and we appreciate the work that they do for us. Did you have anything you wanted to say at all about the employees? There's anything?
We appreciate all of your hard work. Brandon, you should have let more of your employees off to come get their award.
Next on the agenda, we have our attorney, Matt Shipman.
Good afternoon. Most of what I have to report on is just stuff that's later on the agenda. Ultimately, there was a bridge inspection contract that is an NDOT form that I had to look over for Brandon. I've been working with Jason Spencer to kind of clean up the no parking ordinance and the potential fines and things that we talked about a couple months ago. Jason and I have met. Brandon's found some right-of-way documents that we're going to use, to clean up how that fine works and how we make sure that everybody knows about that. Then I did look over the redistricting orders, as well as the well exemptions and waiver forms, and those all seem appropriate as well. So.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to share that Commissioner Banks is with us
virtually? That's right. Our voting will be by roll call today because Commissioner Banks is under the weather, but he's with us virtually. Okay, the first thing on the agenda that we have for us is the county council redistricting. We've been given two options for the redistricting, and would you like to give us the options that we have and talk about it a little bit? This is Jessica Hockemeyer.
So I have 3 orders for you guys today. The first one, we can talk about the redistricting. We were given 2 options to be able to make our, let me just sit over there.
I think you're okay there.
2 options to make our county council districts as even as we could. The 2 options I gave you, change the districts a little bit in each of them. One with a 5.3% deviation and one with a 3.13 deviation. So if you guys have looked them over and you know which one you want to do and you want to vote on it, that's great. If you want to wait, you can do that too.
I think we've had plenty of time to look at it and
Okay.
discuss it. So I would ask for the other commissioners what their thoughts are.
So as I stated in the last meeting, looking at option 1, which splits Union Township between east and west, I like option 1 better because those people that live in Union West, their needs are different than those that live in Union East. I've lived in both Union East, Union West, and I also now live in Smith Township. And it does make more sense to put Union East with Smith Township and have Union West stay in District 3 because that's more of our city residents and they much more identify with their needs versus what a farmer would in Union East. So, and that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
And if I can, George, I guess my thought on it is there's another option with a lower deviation that doesn't split townships in half. With option 1, I believe that it splits Union in half and Thorn Creek in half. And I guess for me, it would make more sense to go with the lower deviation and keeping the integrity of the whole township falling into a district.
I don't think we should get caught up in the townships. I think we need to be looking at the different needs of the people that live there, and the deviation is less than 2%. So I don't think that that's that much of a mitigating factor on why we should vote for option 2 versus option 1.
Would someone like to make a motion on it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we
Option
adopt option 2. It sounds like I'm talking over Teresa, so I'll withdraw mine.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Green to approve option number 1 with a deviation of 5.3. Discussion, can I get a second on that? Seeing no second, it'll die for option number 1. Commissioner?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve option 2 with a deviation of 3.1%.
Okay, we got a motion to approve option number 2. I'll second that. Discussion. All those in favor, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Banks?
Aye.
Commissioner Green?
No.
Commissioner Shrump, yes. So with a 2-1 vote, we'll go with option number 2.
We'll have a correct option number 2's map and spell out of the precincts. next order that I have to present to you is just to change the names of Columbia 1 through 7. And I'll explain why it's just 1 through 7 in a moment. But the state had some deviation in what they were naming our precincts. They were calling some of them Columbia 01 and then some of them Columbia 1. So this is just in order to establish that they are just the single number for those Columbia Township precincts. You're okay with that?
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the renaming of the precincts from Columbia
So moved.
1, to Columbia 1, Columbia 02 to Columbia 2, Columbia 03 to Columbia 3, Columbia 04 to Columbia 4, Columbia 05 to Columbia 5, Columbia 06 to Columbia 6, and Columbia 07 to Columbia 7.
Yeah, so moved.
Commissioner Banks makes a motion. I'll second. Discussion? Commissioner Banks,
Aye.
Commissioner Green,
Aye.
and I'll be a yes also.
Yep, that one just needs signed also, and then
Okay.
that map just shows what the state has sent back to us as a recommendation. We had 2 precincts. We had changed one of the boundaries of it to add some to it to take out of Columbia 5, and it was Columbia 4, but it was still under the 600 minimum that they want in a precinct by law. So in order to get that precinct up above the 600, we had to combine it with Columbia 8. So basically all that means is Columbia 8 is no more. It becomes part of Columbia 4, and it doesn't really change anything else other than that. We'll just go from a 33 or a 34 precinct county to a 33 precinct. That was the only other change besides the ones I had presented before in the precincts. And once if you guys are good with that, then you guys can sign the order establishing precincts, and we can publish it in the paper, and then we're good to go. So she said that we were the first ones in, so we're ahead of the game.
Good.
So if you guys want to vote on that, there's the order to do that.
Thank you.
I'll move the request as presented.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the request as presented.
Second.
Got a second? Further discussions? All those in favor, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Aye.
and I'm a yes also. Thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Title VI transition plan for approval. I met.
Yeah, I did look at it, and I tried to talk to Jennifer today, but I understand she's not around today. To me, I'm comfortable with it, but I'm also not, as commissioners all know, I'm not an employee law specialist. This is really designed and should be probably reviewed by somebody who practices in that space all day long. It would be my recommendation that we at least just bounce it off of the consulting lawyer that we've used previously, that Ed had kind of connected us with, just to have him put eyes on it from somebody who really knows this law. I didn't see any issues with it, but at the same time, I'd feel more comfortable telling you that it's fine if somebody who really knew employment law really put eyes on it.
So when do we have to sign that? Because I know that that's going to be going into effect soon, and I would really hate to miss our opportunity to lower the waiting period from 60 days to 30 days. Do we have to have it?
Do you know, Cami, on that?
There's no rush. As long as we have it done by next month.
Okay. And Brandon, you're okay with us? Okay. Thank you. Chad, any thoughts on that?
No, I'm okay with holding it off and sending it to the attorney for further review.
Okay. That's what we'll do. Next, we have health insurance waiting period change. So we're looking at shortening the waiting period for new employees to enroll in our health insurance. And the current waiting period is on the first of the month following 60 days. So we have discussed changing that to the first of the month following 30 days, and we'd like approval for that or a discussion on that. Teresa?
I don't have any issues with it.
Okay. Chad, did you have any issues with that?
No, I don't have any issues. I think it's a good move.
Okay. We have to make a motion on that to change that.
I would just,
Do I have a motion for the approval of the 30 days from 60 days?
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Commissioner Green with a motion, a second. Commissioner Banks? Any discussions? Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye also. Need a signature or anything?
I don't think so. Shouldn't have anything for me.
Scott Wagner. Well, exemption.
Yes, several items of business today for you.
Okay.
You should have all received the well exemption in your packet there. Pretty standard. It's a lake property. Definitely have a lot more exemptions at the lake than we do anywhere else because of size restrictions. And Mr. Kissinger does have room on the property to drill another well that would be not required an exemption. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't give them to him. It's up to you guys. Any questions?
I looked it over. I don't see it as long as you're fine with it. Commissioner, what's your thoughts?
I have no issues with it.
Commissioner Banks?
I make the variation.
We lost you there, Chad.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request.
Yeah, we got a motion to approve the request by Mr. Kissinger for variation or well exemption.
Second.
Got a second? Further discussions?
The only thing I would say is just to make sure that it's contingent upon him signing the release. as well as the indemnify. Those required documents.
We'll have them sign both and then have it recorded.
Just for clarification purposes.
Do we need to make a second or amendment?
Maybe, Chad, could you hear me? Maybe just amend your motion to make it subject to.
Yes, amend to include your recommendation.
Okay, we've got an amendment to include the recommendation of a release.
There's a
The
release and
indemnity.
a covenant to indemnify and hold harmless.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, we've got a motion and a second to amend to include the covenant to indemnify and hold harmless and the liability release. Any other discussion? Chad,
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Green, and I'm an aye. If someplace I have to sign on this,
There is not. We can re-sign it. I'll have to sign it. Okay, the next thing is discussion on WIC. Just for your information, the health board did vote on Thursday of last week at the regular scheduled meeting to pursue the dropping of sponsorship for WIC in the county. What that would mean is the state would reassign the local WIC department to another agency that would sponsor them. Currently, there's most agencies do sponsor WIC that are not county affiliated. That usually is like a corporation or not-for-profit. That means WIC would stay in Whitley County, preferably in Columbia City, but be managed at a different location under a different agency, not the county. The reason why it came to that with many-fold, but basically we're coming to the point where using county dollars to sponsor a federal program, I think is the biggest rub. So they did vote for that. There'll be a many-month transition at this time. So the next discussion is the director, Sarah. We have talked a couple times at Personnel Committee and preliminarily with commissioners about her hours and working situation. WIC is ran by USDA at the federal level, and they've given WIC clinics the ability to work remotely. As of May 1st, we required them to be in the office, and they've been in the office at that time. During this transition, Sarah Gilliam is asking if she is able to work one day remote and still work at her 34 hours, which is what's being sponsored by the state. Or do we want to change that for the time being? Or what kind of options do we want to give her as we transition them out of the county?
and this is only during the transition period.
Right, which would be from now until the point where she went to a different agency, they would have their own protocol.
Okay.
And like I said, a lot of the things are rubbing between what the state's saying and what the county. So the county for a full-time person is 37 and a half hours. The state's saying 34 hours. So there's a difference there that's a rub, as well as working remotely. We don't do that for any other county employees. So that's what I'm coming to you today for, is if we're allowing her during this transition period to another agency, if she can still continue to be considered 34 hours for full-time and do one day remote. If you don't want that, then we can change something else or whatever your decision.
Okay. Commissioner?
I've given this a lot of thought, and since we are the sponsoring agency, I think that she should fall under county rules, and we do not allow any other employees to work remote. And I think it's entirely unfair to allow her to do that, even in an interim period when they're moving out. If we want to start a remote work policy, we need to seriously look at that and make sure that it's fair to everybody, and doesn't really weigh on one person's particular situation. So I prefer that she would be in the office every day, as all of the rest of the county employees are required to.
Do we, then, and you're saying, are you wanting her to do 37.5, or you want her to do the 34 hours that's sponsored by the state?
So she's been doing 37.5 and we've been paying for the extra 3. I thought that that's,
So when she was hired on 2 years ago, it was 35 hours. Commissioners agreed at that time 35 hours was full time for her, which was kind of an exemption to the process. So it's 35 hours the last 2 years, they dropped her down to 34 hours now. That's all they're paying. So do we, if we wanted to make her do 37.5 hours, we'll have to go to council for that extra money. Because the state's only paying for 34 hours.
I think if we've been doing it for 34 hours and she's leaving and that's something that started way back from the beginning, I think that's fine. I don't see it being any benefit to the county really, except for costing us more dollars to pay her the extra 3.5 hours. I think it would be more procedural than anything. So I'm okay with 34 hours.
Mr. Banks?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Green on this one. I don't think it's a good idea to start giving exceptions for working from home at this time. But I also agree that 34 hours is most appropriate so that there's not an additional cost to the county to pay for those additional hours.
Okay, I'll let her know that she'll need to be in the office for 34 hours per week.
Okay.
Until transition.
Thank you.
Okay. And also at the health board meeting, the health board affirmed Dr. Burkett for another 4 years. And if you're wanting to do that, I'll have the executive sign at the bottom of, and date at the bottom of the page.
Great. Do we need a, Matt, do we need a
Motion for that.
motion? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve Dr. Burkett for local health officer? That's for another 4 years?
Yeah.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Got a second? Discussion? Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. Thank you, Dr. Burkett. We appreciate that.
Okay, this is the last item of business. Feel a little weird about it, but it's down the bottom. There, there. Also at the health board meeting, per protocol, they did vote to use the Indiana Finance Authority grant that we received for COVID work in 2020. That can pay additional hours for overtime worked or something like that. So the statement you see there is what Dr. Burkett read, and you see in the minutes that they approved that under Dr. Burkett's.
Okay.
And so all we're asking here today is a favorable pass to the council because the salary ordinance would have to be changed in order for any additional compensation.
Okay, Commissioner, did you have anything?
So I know you definitely work super hard, but what about your employees? Are there any
They
that
took their hours.
all of them did?
So the only ones that worked overtime were the other exempted employees, our 2 nurses,
Okay,
and they took their time off already for that. Other employees, if they worked more than 1 day, they took that off that same week. So they never had overtime hours.
okay.
Commissioner Banks, did you have? I guess one thought I've got is I really doesn't need our approval. It just goes to the council and the council would be,
The only thing, the reason I brought it here is because it doesn't mention anything specific. And I know the commission had an idea of what they wanted.
yeah,
And that, so that way something like that can be communicated to the council.
yeah. Well, I think, Commissioner Banks, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, sorry about before I was on mute. I guess, in my opinion, I would feel most comfortable with not giving a recommendation for or against and just sending it directly to council.
And did you hear what the reasoning was with Scott?
No, I did not.
What Scott was saying is that we had come up with a recommendation as far as a number, and he was wondering if that shouldn't be presented to the commissioners and then so that it could go to council.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how methodical our recommendation was. I can't recall even what the recommendation was. And I'm not sure that it was really based on anything. It wasn't like his annual pay was not divided by hours and then multiplied by the number of hours that he worked over or anything like that. I would just feel most comfortable, since this is really in council's wheelhouse, for them to determine that.
So we'll do that during.
So I guess I just have one thing to add. I know you worked super hard and you worked ridiculously long hours. So I guess it's my personal opinion that I do think that you should be compensated. It's something that we couldn't have planned for. Hopefully we'll never go through it again. And I know all of our employees worked super hard, but you were in the clinic every day, exposed constantly, and we definitely appreciate it. And I know you were very tired and missed a lot of hours away from your own family.
A lot of telephone calls.
Yes, and obviously working for the government, you wouldn't make what, working for the private sector. So if this is something we can do, I think you more than deserve it.
Anything else from you?
That's it. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Brandon Forrester, or wait a minute, I'm sorry. Well, we'll go to Nathan Bilger, rezoning ordinance and plat approval.
Thank you. I'll start with the plat first. It is plat for a one-lot subdivision to be named Barbara Lynn Lane. Not sure exactly why that name was chosen, but it is a unique name. This is located up on 600 North and 50 West. It is a piece of ground that is owned by several different family members in common, and they are now to the point that they want to split each one out. Did have another version of this plat that, as I mentioned in email to you guys, was the preliminary copy. The previous version had an error in the owners, and that has been corrected with this one, so you would be signing the correct copy. You'll notice that there aren't any owners yet on it because they haven't had a chance to come in yet, though. This was before the Plan Commission, County Plan Commission, at their August meeting, and was passed by them, subject to secondary plat approval being delegated to staff, which is a pretty standard condition. So if you've got questions for me.
Commissioner Banks?
I'm trying to remember, and I don't have the papers in front of me because obviously they're in the office. I had planned on being there today, but is this someone near Collins?
No, that isn't this, the Collins.
No, this isn't the rezoning yet, no.
Okay.
This is one of the one lot plats that we typically see.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, if it passed Plan Commission and has gone through staff approval, then I have no issue with it.
Motion, I'm sorry.
No, I don't think he's.
At the meeting, there was really nothing controversial about this request, so I'll move that we approve the request as presented.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the request as presented.
I'll second.
Got a second? Any further discussions? All those in favor, Chet, Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Mr. Green,
Aye.
and an aye for me.
And Chad, since you're not here, I'll hold this for your signature as well, since you did vote on it. But like I said, there's still a couple other signatures that need to occur, so hopefully I'll see you in the office soon.
Yep.
The other item that's on the agenda for me is a rezoning request. This was heard at the Plan Commission meeting in October. Excuse me. It's about 18 acres that is proposed to be rezoned from AG agricultural to RR rural residential in order to allow for a 4-lot subdivision plat. It is 4 roadside, roadfront lots that are being proposed. And I believe you got a copy of the proposed plat as well. The overall acreage of each varies from about 4 to just under 6 acres each. So not the minimum size of 2 acres on any of them. This was unique, however, in 2018, for your reference, in 2018, we adopted some additional regulations dealing with both confined feeding operations, which we've talked about frequently since then, as well as major residential subdivisions, which we have not talked about very much because it's not really come up too frequently. Major residential subdivision is a subdivision, so a plat that has 3 platted lots being created from it, from the parent tract from 2018. So being a 4-lot plat, we have more than that 3 lots. Thus, it needs to be treated as a major residential subdivision, which requires a rezoning. Prior to 2018, there was no cap on the number of lots that you could plat in AG agricultural. And so the biggest example of that is Lincoln Point, where most of that major subdivision is zoned AG agricultural. It just doesn't seem to fit there. And so in 2018, 3 was determined to be that defining threshold. We have had one that was down in Jefferson Township earlier this year that was a similar case, but it was already bounded by existing subdivisions. This one is not. It has 2 2-lot plats, one to the south and one to the north, but otherwise it is surrounded by fields and just unplatted territory. So this comes to you with a 5-4 recommendation, favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. There was quite a bit of lengthy discussion about the site in particular, as well as some more general discussion about how this could work in the future as well. And if you want me to give you more details, I will, but I think you've probably reviewed the video and so on. Right. So that is what is being proposed. And I think there should be a copy of the proposed ordinance if you want to take action on that today.
Did both of you watch the Plan Commission meeting?
I did not get a chance to watch that. I did get a link from Nathan, but I did not watch it. I was hoping to learn more during this time.
So I was one of the 4 that voted no. For me, there was quite a few issues with it. He purchased this land, the current landowner, knowing that it was AG. He's moving from out of state, which is great. Everybody's welcome to move here. I think that's great. His colleague is going to, I believe, purchase the other half or wants to build on the same land. That's great. But he bought, was it 18 or 20 acres? I'm sorry. 18. And wanted to split it into 4. And he and his colleague would take 1 plot each, and then he wanted to sell the other 2 off. He bought the land knowing that it was AG. I think that it should stay AG. I've gotten about 10 emails, about 5 different phone calls, and I also have an email that I want to read that I think really sums up the consensus from a lot of the landowners that I've heard from. To purchase a piece of land and then just to come in and assume that we're going to rezone it for you is wrong. And I'm not saying he can't build. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that it needs to stay the 2 plot and he and his colleague can build on it. I think that's great again. I've heard from almost all of the landowners who live around there and they do not want it. And I think that we need to listen. So, and I've got I think there's a couple people that, Mr. Chair, if you're willing to recognize them, I think that they'd like to speak. So I don't know, Commissioner Banks, if you want to talk or what order you want to do it in.
Commissioner Banks? Have any discussion on this? Recognize. If you have someone that would like to speak for the residents in the area, if I recognize you, could you tell me your name and address, please? Yes.
And could you, Nathan, could you switch her spots for a second? And then just come up and say your name and your address and then speak. Tell us what you have to say.
Thank you. My name is Samantha Burke. I live at 5155 East 200 North. And we have a number of people here, our neighbors, who we've all spoke with. So in many ways, I'm speaking on their behalf as well, since we've all kind of got together and talked about it. As you realize, that everybody is opposed to this living on the road. We've been there for about 16 years. At that time, there were only 4 houses on the road. We have had the addition of 2 recently in the last couple of years. I think that in our minds, the implications are not just locally to 200, but they also have a larger impact to the township as well as to the county in terms of changing the rural fabric of where we live and what we do. We do have a small farm that we do actively farm as hayfield and cows. Our neighbors also co-opt their land out to crops as well. There's a lot of reasons. I've listed 4, and I did not know a lot about zoning until I started looking into this. So thank you for the education. You can make an argument about the ecological impact of putting in a subdivision, even if it is 4 houses. There is significant agricultural ground there, as well as wooded areas that act as a conduit for wildlife to move from one plot to another. And that's going to negatively impact that. When we're talking about a subdivision, we're also talking about the recontouring of the topography and putting in additional hardscape around the houses, including things like outdoor living spaces, concrete driveways, etc. That's going to have other impact. By putting in the houses, they're going to need to do some recontouring of the land, which will affect the topography. We already have an issue with water, particularly on the east side of 200 North. My husband and I recently had the county replace the county tile, which has become an infamous story because it took about 2.5 years to finally get it finished. And we are still dealing with water. There's a potential of some water runoff that would be additional to what we already have. So there's also the economic impact and the fact that we are changing the land, moving it from agricultural, which that is a big agricultural part of the township, and therefore diminishing the opportunity for farmers to continue to harvest and plant crops. You can get on down with the food chain, etc., but I'm not going to give those details. The other concern that we have is also the capacity of the infrastructure in that area to be able to support a. So about 8 years ago, our road was changed from a dirt road to chip and seal. Now, chip and seal is not a very sustainable, and it is really designed for low traffic area. Even currently now, 200 North is used as a bypass for traffic moving from 205 over to 400 and on out to Tri-Lakes. So we see a significant amount of traffic anyway that consistently damages the road. And that's evidence, at least one area is evident on the hill that sits right outside of our property, where there is consistent damage and potholes where the chip and seal is broken down. Additionally, farm equipment is constantly moved up and down that road, depending on whether season we're in, whether we're in harvest or in planting. And having an additional population of 4 houses and family dwellings on that is going to impact and raise the traffic level, therefore further degrading the road. We also have questions and concerns about how other utilities are going to be handled, as well as any of the other support systems that are needed as a community begins to grow. I think one of the largest things that we have is really maintaining the township's agriculture and rural character and the quality of life that we all chose when we moved out here and all of us bought significant plots of land and chose to actually live not just in a rural area, but also farm and practice farming in many cases. The introduction of the major residential subdivision is going to irreparably change the character of the township. It's going to start making it look more like a subdivision. Many people who live in urban areas who are wanting to move into the urban are talking about moving because of noise, crime, etc. As more of these subdivisions go in, it's just going to start coming into where we live and where the subdivision is. Having multi-story dwellings is a precedent too, since we are mostly an agricultural area within that township, within that area. By approving this zoning and doing this, you've set up a precedent for more similar type activities to happen, and therefore adding to the congestion and to diminishing the rural lifestyle that we are all practicing. I think fundamentally the idea of zoning is to really reduce conflict between farm and non-farm uses of land, particularly in this. Since almost everybody on the road and in the region is actively involved in agriculture and rural living, including all of the lifestyle activities that prevents or allows, introducing a subdivision into this region not only allows for future growth, but it also is going to create an increased conflict between those that are living in rural and those that are actively living a rural lifestyle.
Thank you.
Chad's on there.
Chad, do you have any discussion on this?
I have to Nathan. If this doesn't get passed, if it's not approved, am I right in understanding that then, because you can divide once, each one of these 2 people that are moving could basically divide it later into 4 parts?
The petitioner has discussed an alternate. Actually, one of their original ideas was to split the 18 acres into 2 4-acre parcels and a 10-acre parcel, which would not require a 3rd lot. It would be 2 platted lots and then a 10-acre parcel that would be unplatted. And if so, that's likely what he would go back to.
So ultimately, he would achieve the same thing he's trying to achieve now.
Yeah, the only difference would be the additional 2 lots to make it a total of 4, versus which is what is platted now or proposed now.
Okay.
What number this would be?
Be 2021-12.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
I
I understand Commissioner Bink's point. However, what we're looking at now is the rezoning from AG to RR. So I think that that's what we should look at. And I do have an email that I would like to read from one of the homeowners that lives right, I believe, south of where they would like to build. My name is Jordan Hines, and I hope that you vote to deny rezoning on East 200 North. I am married to Cameron Hines, and we both have 2 beautiful children together and hope to have a couple more. Currently, we live in a housing addition on the west side of Fort Wayne and purchased the land directly behind the lot in question with the intent of building our forever home on it. Both Cameron and I grew up in the country and cannot wait to return to the country and give our children the adventurous childhood that we both had. When we bought this land, we knew that there was a possibility of the land around us being sold and some houses going up. But that thought there would be a limit to the amount of houses that would be allowed to be built due to it being zoned AG. However, if this does get rezoned to RR, we know that the amount of houses going up will be significantly more. Therefore, I desperately hope that you vote to keep it AG and to protect the countryside. I also believe this area is inappropriate to rezone to RR, as it is directly in between Columbia City and Churubusco. I am not an expert on these matters, but one would think that residential areas would be much closer to the cities. My last point I would like to make is in regards to what Mr. Aguilar stated at the Whitley County Plan Commission that was held on October 20th. When asked what his plan was for the land that he purchased, he stated that he was planning on building a home on lot 3 for himself, and that his colleague was going to build on another home on another lot, and that he was going to sell the other 2 lots in hopes of making some money to help him afford to build his home. When he purchased his 18 acres, it was zoned as AG. So again, granting his request to rezone it so that he can make a profit to build his home seems unacceptable and inappropriate. If this 18 acres does get rezoned to RR, then I fear that the 28 acres right beside it and my property will also be at risk for rezoning. Please help me protect my investment and my dream of raising my young family out in the country. Thank you so much for your time. I apologize that I was not unable to attend in person, as I am a healthcare worker and unable to step away from my patients.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Okay.
85 acres.
Could you give your name and your address, please?
It's a farm ground, okay? You're gonna, when I was in this business, this cut and fill, dirt work, I don't like, okay? We're gonna trade this into faster water. I don't think the county have any idea changing anything. Force all this water down on me, my infrastructure, which is fragile. It cost me, it's already catching some of this water. Now you're just gonna speed it up and send it faster. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I've seen this go on.
Okay.
So I don't think it's really fair. Have more thought from the county about controlling this water.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we keep the zoning AG.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table to continue the area to be an AG rather than rezone to an RR. Do I have a second? Ted, can you hear? I'll say as much as, I'm really torn on this one because I truly feel that people should be able to do what they want with their land, but also in changing this zoning to an RR, it does change the dynamics of that area. I guess at this point, what I would do is I would second that motion that we, that area remain as an AG. Any further discussions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
commissioners usually try and have all three commissioners act on a rezoning action without Mr. Banks here. Do you want to take that into consideration?
I'm gonna call him and have him get back online.
Thank you.
Nathan, another point is, it's really kind of a negative motion, right? It's really taking no action is in effect the action not approving the rezoning as opposed to a motion.
I would agree on that.
You know what I'm saying? 'Cause
Okay.
Ultimately, if they're not gonna approve the
He said that he
rezoning,
tried to get back on, but it's
then
not
that
letting
really
him.
just, it dies for lack of.
It's your board to advise. If it was the plan
Okay, hold on
commission,
a
I would say a motion to deny would be an action, but whichever way you want to handle it.
I don't know why it's not letting him in.
I don't think it's improper. It just seems kind of like we're voting
Right.
negative as opposed to just saying, we're not going to approve it.
Well, I kind of
Kind of
thought
the same
about that,
thing.
and instead of denying
It's
the
kind of the
request to
same thing.
rezone it, that's why I made
You
a
know,
positive motion to keep
It's
it
a
as AG.
finality as opposed to a,
Yeah.
otherwise, what is
Not
it,
working.
60
Put him on
days that
speakerphone.
it dies for lack of action?
90.
90.
I have to FaceTime him, because doesn't he have to, he has to be here.
I don't know how. It's
Okay.
it's showing him.
I'm not sure. what the
I'm
ordinance
gonna
is.
FaceTime you. Is that okay? Okay, all right, I'll do that right now. Just pretty sure that you have to be here both. Hello. Okay, so I made a motion to keep the land in question zoned AG. George seconded that motion. We had a little bit of discussion, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. Correct.
Any further discussion on that, Chad? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Chad? Teresa?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye also.
Okay. I'll just put you down on the table for the rest of the meeting. Is that okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Brandon Forrester, our Highway Director and County Engineer.
I just have two things today. Tiffany has a right-of-way cut permit for NIPSCO on Harold Road. It's cut in a paved portion, so it does need to get approval from the commissioners. Acknowledge that and recommended approval to the board.
I don't think you just heard what Brandon said. We're looking at the right-of-way cut permit. And did you see any issues with it, Brandon?
No.
And Brandon has no issues with the right-of-way cut request.
Okay.
So I'll move that we approve the request as presented.
Okay, we got a motion. We've got a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Commissioner Banks? Commissioner Green?
Aye.
Commissioner Trump, yes. We have three places here.
There should be, I believe it's on the third page, that would be my signature and then spots for yours. And then next is the next step in our, yes.
distribute that to next. Thank you. The next step in our bridge inspection, 4-year contract for 2022 to 2025. The next step is the Whitley County NDOT contract. Last meeting or the meeting before, we approved a contract with Engineering Resources, but this is just the funding mechanism is through NDOT, so we need to have a contract with them. The contract itself is boilerplate. They send it to us. I've been told numerous times we cannot change it or they won't approve it. Matt did review it. So if you choose to execute that, that's fine.
I don't think I have that in my packet, my paper packet. too.
Matt, you've taken a look at this thing?
Yeah, like Brandon said, it's they
There
don't
it
give
is.
us a lot of leeway on these, but there really isn't any language that's not contemplates kind of an equitable relationship, so.
Chad, did you hear Brandon on that bridge inspection contract? Can you hear me now? It says you have poor connection. Okay. So the bridge inspection is for Engineering Resources. We already approved that. Was that last couple meetings ago? And this is the funding part is what I understood.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so what we're looking at now is the funding contract. Have you looked at this, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, and Matt's looked at it and there's no issues with it? Do you have anything? I'll move that we approve the request as presented.
Okay, we got a motion to approve as presented. Got a second? Any further discussions? All those in favor, Chad? Teresa?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye also. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes, thank you.
I think there's just a spot for you to sign. And that's the signature page there.
This one.
I think it's set up for 3 signatures actually, with Tiffany attesting.
Yes. So I think that would be appropriate when Chad gets back to health, if he could sign that, and then we'll send it on to NDOT. They have to have the original.
Okay. Brandon just asked that you, when you are feeling better, to come in and sign this because we all have to sign it and he can't turn it into NDOT until all of us have signed it. So just when you're feeling better, stop into your office, Brandon. Or I can-
Would you mind holding it?
Or Tiffany will have it in her office.
Real quick, Campbell and I we're compiling all the information to move forward with the next step for the ADA project. I just got an email from NDOT sometime over the weekend or this morning that they're setting a December 1st deadline, which we haven't technically approved. They're saying we need to commit to a letting date for our project, and we haven't technically chosen a consultant yet, so I'll have to get with them on that. I mean, there's no way we're gonna commit to a letting date by December 1st of this year for a project 5 years out.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Just FYI on that, and still waiting to hear from our community crossings application. I did check the FAQs on their website. They said late October, early November, so.
Got to be getting close then.
Yeah, should be close.
Yeah.
Well, no, they have already made the announcement for the January call that'll be coming up. So that's
Okay, keep our fingers crossed on that one.
right. Well, if by chance we don't get anything this time, we'll just apply again in January.
Well, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
And also, thank you, Cammie, for working on that ADA with us. I know there's a lot of work to it. Okay, we just got a, with Lori Shipman, we do have a contract as far as a grant administration. We were just going to talk about that because we'd been talking with Region 3A. Region 3A, we were going to, I think we decided to go with Region 3A to work with us on many different things that they work with us on. And, but we just wanted to make sure that Lori knew in the meeting here that we were planning on going with Region 3A. And did you have anything to say about that? And Lori's done a great job for us. She really has.
So I just learned about this on Friday, so I would make a motion to table this so I have time to further explore, I guess, what's going on with
Okay.
it.
We got a motion to table.
Yeah, I'm fine with table.
Okay,
I'll second.
we got a second. Any further discussion? Chad? Mr. Green?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye also. So we'll table this till the next meeting, which is today, the next
The 15th, I believe.
15th.
I see it as a more services would be provided.
And we used to be with Region 3A for quite a while there, but they had some issues. And they have done a great job for a lot of their, I think there's 10 counties that they deal with, and we're one of the 10. But we've looked into the services that they provide, and they do provide a lot of good services. Okay, next we have facilities requests. Okay, the first one we have is Jeff Walker, Old Settlers, for 6/20/22 to 6/26/22.
Is that the? Does this look like what they do every single year, George?
Pretty much.
Okay. I don't see any issues with the facilities request for Old Settlers Day, so I'll move that we approve the request as presented.
Okay, we got a motion to approve. We got a second. Further discussions? Okay, all those in favor, Chad?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye also. Thank you. Okay, next we have Jeffrey Herendeen from the Columbia City Fire Department for the Whitley County Courthouse and Grounds at 12/24/21 from 3 o'clock till 8 o'clock. And the north door entrance will be open, security pod doors will be propped open. And they've already talked to Mark Sturtevant about this. They've got it all set up with our director of maintenance.
So Mark approved it?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any issues with it as long as Mark Sturtevant's okay with it and they follow all of the protocols for
Okay,
using the courthouse.
we got a motion to approve with the stipulation that they check with Mark Sturtevant to make sure that he's approved everything. Got a second? Discussion? All those in favor? Chad? Commissioner Green? And Commissioner Schrumpf did the same. Got 3 yeses. Okay, next we have payroll and accounts payable claims approval. I did have a chance to take a look at all the claims and payroll claims. This morning, everything looked great like it always does with our new auditor. By the way, we have a new auditor now. We have Tiffany Deacons that's our new auditor, and we welcome her, and she's done a great job for us so far. We really appreciate what she does. So do I have a motion to approve payroll and accounts receivables?
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion, and we got a second discussion. All those in favor? Commissioner Banks? Commissioner Green?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrumpf, I'm gonna yes also. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the previous meeting minutes approval for October 18th, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes, and are there any amendments? Okay.
Second.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Discussion. All those in favor, Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. Hey, Matt, did you have anything further? Commissioner Banks?
I guess just one comment on the jail. We are moving along with that. On our next agenda, there should be an item that talks about the contract with Elevatus. The jail desperately needs to be replaced. Right now, there's a big leak. There's water leaking in the front office. Over the weekend, one of the inmates stuffed some type of homemade parachute down the toilet, and with the current system that we have, they can continuously flush the toilet. And they had to call in for emergency services because it flooded everything. Is that right? And they had to, I don't know, but it caused havoc over there. And they've also been getting into the electrical wires somehow. So there's also the fear that somebody's going to electrocute themselves. And these are just a few issues that this is just what happened over the weekend. So yeah, so that's it for me.
Okay. Commissioner Banks, did you have anything? Okay, and I have nothing at this time. Anything from the public? Yes.
I have a question.
Sir, can you come up here and say your name and address? Thank you.
My name is Dan Williamson. Nice to see y'all. I live at 490 West, 150 North, right off of 109. And I've been concerned about this pandemic thing, and I see all kinds of things happening that are completely out of control, especially financially. I see all kinds of financial burdens and everything going on. But at the same time, I see that there's a natural cure out there, and the more I try to tell people about it, the more guff I get from people about it, because it's like they're pre-programmed to believe everything Big Pharma tells them anymore. And I don't know how many livestock farmers we have in here today. Is there a raise of hands? Any livestock farmers?
I think they all left.
Okay, well, they have been using for decades, and I found this out recently, a product called diatomaceous earth. And this stuff, the food grade, is available in trillions of tons across this planet. And the thing about diatomaceous earth is it kills viruses on contact and parasites. It eats through their armor and dehydrates them and stuff. And livestock farmers have been using it for decades. I myself and my family have been using it for 4 years. And the surprising thing is we haven't had a cold or flu or anything. And it only takes a little bit of this stuff to do the job. It will actually kill any virus that's in your system. And from an economic standpoint, I would think somebody would take this serious. I've called people left and right since March of 2020. Once I found out about it, I even talked to Scott with the health department about it, and nobody's taking me seriously. And with all the money you guys are spending, I would think at least for that much, you would do some, further investigation. I've done quite a bit of investigation myself because my wife, she's bedbound now and she's ill all the time. So I'm on the internet all the time looking for cures for this, that, and the other. And this is how I found this out, just trying to cure the situation with my rose bushes and bugs eating it. And when you buy something on the internet, a lot of times you'll get these junk emails and stuff telling you other things about it, trying to get you to buy. And that's how I found out about the virus part of it. Okay. And then trying to spread the news, I ran across people in Walmart that are livestock farmers, and they're the only ones that knew what I was talking about. And they said, we've been using it for decades.
I'm not sure that this is a place for this conversation, but I would ask you if you
okay.
talk to Scott about that.
I didn't know the procedure or anything, but I talked to him on the phone. And
okay.
So I think an investigation would be warranted. I mean, with all the money that's being spent and everything. Okay.
Well, we pretty well count on our health department for that. So we'll, if you want to talk to Mr. Wagner, that'd be great.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to do the right thing. That's why I came here today, to see if we can get some movement on it.
Sure. Well, thank you.
All righty. Thanks.
Okay. We'll adjourn at this time.
Chad, we're gonna adjourn, so I'm gonna hang, oh, well, he hung up.